Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. We're at episode number 1647 today, and today we're continuing our 2019 series preview, and even though we're talking about comics, it's still going to bear on probably the biggest of all events for Star Wars in 2019, which is episode 9, of course, but we'll get there in a moment. First, let's talk about what we already know about 2019 so far, because there are some things we know and some things that have yet to be revealed. So we know that we are entering the year with only 2 ongoing series, the main flagship Star Wars title and the Dr. Aphra title. And I guess you could say that the Age of series is also kind of an ongoing series. It's a maxi series with dozens of issues that are going to come out, but all in this one year. And so, that itself, I guess, because of the sheer volume of comics that they're producing, you could probably consider that to be a third ongoing series for all intents and purposes. And I think we talked about this in the 2018 recap, that they've only had 4 at a given time, like ongoing series going at any one time. That would be the max. So it would be a surprise to see another one debut right now, especially since they're ramping up to episode 9. But that's not the only thing they do. For example, they also do a bunch of limited series things, and they're in the middle of a couple of those right now, including the Han Solo Imperial Cadet miniseries and also the Solo: A Star Wars Story adaptation. Those 2 are going to finish up. And then we also have the Dark Vision series that's going to be coming out soon, which is a limited edition series with Darth Vader. Darth Vader has had 2 different 25-issue full series runs, and those are both over now, and now we're getting this little 5-issue thing. I have to say, I feel like Darth Vader is about to get a bit of a rest. I mean, I know there was going to be another 5-issue thing with Chuck Wendig, and that unfortunately has gone the way of the dodo at this point. But, be that as it may, it seems like Darth Vader, there's only so much you can do with him, right? I mean, just in terms of, giving the character a rest and refreshing him. And so, who would you decide to bring in instead? Lando has had 2 different 5-issue miniseries runs. Leia has had 1 5-issue miniseries run. And of course, she shows up in the Star Wars flagship series as well. Luke hasn't had any individual runs himself, so I think there's opportunity for either Luke or Leia in there, and that's just in the original trilogy era. I think you could also go into Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy era, and Anakin, of course, naturally, but maybe that would, I'm not sure how that would play off when you have Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray coming out, which is all about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. You feel like if the interest is being stirred there, that maybe you would want to stir it a little bit more and give people the opportunity to dive into other stories, especially since this year is, of course, the 20th anniversary of the release of The Phantom Menace. So all the more reason to dive into the prequel trilogy a little bit with some content. Another thing that has not been announced, but seems like it has the potential for being a limited run series from Marvel, is an adaptation of the second Thrawn novel, Thrawn: Alliances, because of course they have already adapted the initial Thrawn novel, and so if that did well enough, why wouldn't they adapt the second one? It's the only novel that they've actually adapted, and so if there's anyone that they're going to consider adapting for the future, that's likely to be the main candidate for it. And swinging back to the Age of series, so there are going to be a number of issues that are divided out into the 3 time periods. Age of Republic is what's happening right now. Age of Rebellion is going to be coming out in the second third of the year, and the Age of Resistance comics are going to be coming out in the final third of the year, which of course has to do with the build-up to episode 9. I'm sure that timing is not coincidental, to say the least. And one other thing that they're doing with the comics, which I think is actually kind of awesome, and it's really interesting to see them doing this. It makes me wonder, just what the strategy is, what's going on. But they are issuing trade paperback collections of Legends comics, and there's a Knights of the Old Republic comic series that is getting gathered into these new Epic Collection trade paperback editions, and multiple volumes are coming out this year. And in addition to that, some of the Droids and Ewoks comics are also being collected in trade paperback versions. That is crazy. I mean, really, like, of all things, I'm sure there's a reason for it, and maybe it just has to do with, nostalgia for, a certain age group who actually grew up remembering those particular cartoons when they were on. But yeah, Droids and Ewoks comics were also done at the same time, and so those are going to be collected in trade paperback form as well. They're also doing new graphic novel adaptations of the original trilogy, and that is kind of fascinating too. It's, kind of plays along with the idea of Galaxy of Adventures and how they're doing this reimagining of what Star Wars looks like for a younger generation. And so, they've already done this on the novel side too with new novel adaptations for the original trilogy. And so, I guess this is another step in that direction, keeping the trilogy fresh for a new generation of fans. And there's one other thing to discuss about the comic situation that has to do with episode 9, and we'll get to that in just a second. Of course, I do want to remind you that if you're not subscribing to the show, please do. Make sure you get it delivered to you wherever you like to get it. And also, I hope you'll consider supporting this daily dose of Star Wars joy by joining the community at patreon.com/SW7x7. And for that last bit about episode 9, well, here's the thing. We only have official announcements for comics at this point through the end of July, right? July 23rd. And so Star Wars Celebration Chicago happening mid-April seems like a pretty good place to announce anything regarding the Journey to the episode 9 Journey to episode 9 publishing initiative in general, and comics were a part of the Journey to the Last Jedi, so there's every reason to believe that it will be this time as well, between the 4-issue Captain Phasma miniseries and also the Captain Phasma actually there was a one-shot as well. No, there was a Storms of Crate one-shot, there was a DJ one-shot. The Phasma thing was a 4-issue miniseries that explained how she survived the destruction of Starkiller Base and getting dropped in a trash compactor and all that stuff. Anyway, so there's bound to be something as well for episode 9 too. I mean, yes, we're going to have the Age of Resistance comics, and that will give us something there, but if it turns out, and I haven't heard anything about Phasma surviving the events of The Last Jedi, but if it turns out that she does survive it, well, I have a feeling that we'll have another series about how Phasma survives the events of The Last Jedi. And I'm sure there will be another one-shot or two related to what's going on. We also have, new actors portraying characters in the movie, like Kerry Russell and Richard E. Grant and Naomi Ackie, so hopefully have your name pronounced right, Naomi. My apologies if not. And so there's a good opportunity for them to be doing one-shot issues around those characters as well, depending on how significant those characters are too. So once again, Celebration Chicago is going to be a very important event for finding out more about what the rest of the comic situation is going to look like for 2019, and in particular for tie-ins to episode 9. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the show here. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.